Coming up today, North Korea adopts a decision by the ruling party's Central Committee to simultaneously pursue nuclear and economic development and to reaffirm Kim Jong-un's complete control over the regime. The South Korean government says North Korea will never be recognized as a nuclear state. It stresses that the door to dialogue is open so long as Pyongyang ends its provocations. Plus, South Korea's ruling party is set for crisis talks aimed at reversing its slumping popularity. The opposition parties, fresh from their election success, discuss leadership spots within the National Assembly. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Monday, the 9th of May. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. North Korea's ruling Workers' Party Congress is our starting point this afternoon. The country's state-run media reported this morning that the party's Central Committee has adopted a decision in which it reaffirms Kim Jong-un's leadership and calls itself a nuclear power. Gwon-soo starts us off.
North Korea's state-run news agency reported Monday that the Workers' Party's Central Committee unanimously adopted the decision on Sunday, the third day of the once-in-a-generation event. Kim Jong-un's complete control over North Korea has been reaffirmed, and the decision includes a plan to keep pursuing the so-called Pyeongjin policy of parallel nuclear and economic development. The Korean Central News Agency also said Pyongyang will, quote, boost its self-defensive nuclear force in quality and quantity. In a speech to the Congress shown on Sunday, Kim Jong-un said North Korea was a responsible nuclear weapon state. He also mentioned denuclearization for the first time, saying Pyongyang won't use its nuclear weapons unless its sovereignty is threatened by other countries with nuclear arms. Reacting to Kim's remarks, the United States once again demanded North Korea completely abandon its nuclear ambitions. A spokesman for the U.S. State Department on Sunday urged Pyongyang to stick to its international obligation to denuclearize. He also stressed the UN Security Council's resolution clearly states that North Korea shall end its nuclear program in a complete, verifiable, and irreversible manner. Diplomatic sources say Washington shares the same stance as Seoul, considering Kim's announcement as a clear signal North Korea has no plans to give up its nuclear weapons program. Gwon-soo, Arirang News.
Now, South Korea's defense ministry has also responded to North Korea's reference to itself as a nuclear power.
Neither Seoul nor the international community will recognize North Korea as a nuclear state, and we will continue to impose strong sanctions on Pyongyang to pressure it to give up its nuclear weapons program.
The spokesman added that Seoul is open to dialogue with the North as long as the regime ends its provocations and takes concrete steps to denuclearize. Now, North Korea experts have jumped on the contradictory nature of comments made by Kim Jong-un during his speech to the Workers' Party Congress. The young leader claimed North Korea would work towards a world without nuclear weapons, despite threatening nuclear war on numerous occasions and testing 4 bombs over the last 10 years. But could the North be painting itself into a corner with its nuclear obsession? Kim Hae-sung reports.
For the past couple of years, North Korea has continuously argued that its nuclear weapons development is a way of strengthening its self-defense against U.S. aggression. In 2003, North Korea withdrew from the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons and has conducted 4 nuclear tests since 2006. Such moves are clearly far removed from any notion of denuclearization. When China's special representative for Korean Peninsula Affairs visited the North in February and asked about the regime's stance on denuclearization, Pyongyang did not give a clear answer. Instead, North Korea conducted a ballistic missile test in April, and another signal that denuclearization is hardly top of its priority list. But now, Kim Jong-un is claiming North Korea will work towards the denuclearization of the world.
Its duties for the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons and strive for global denuclearization.
Going a step further, Kim said his so-called Pyeongjin policy of pushing for economic growth and nuclear armament simultaneously would be the party's permanent policy. Some experts say North Korea has made a potentially dangerous misjudgment as the international sanctions against the regime will only increase with each provocation.
The Kim Jong-un regime has fallen into a nuclear trap. The tighter North Korea holds on to its nuclear weapons, the greater chance the regime will collapse.
Analysts say North Korea may believe it has added a wild card by calling itself a responsible nuclear weapons state, but the cost of developing the weapons is likely to drive the regime closer to the edge. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
Now in other news, and there's a busy day ahead in domestic politics, Korea's ruling Saenuri Party will hold a meeting later this afternoon with all of its newly elected lawmakers. Officials want to gather ideas on how to lead the Conservative Party out of its current crisis. The party is still without a leader since Kim Moo-sung, the party's former number one, stepped down to take responsibility for last month's crushing loss in the general election. The Saenuri Party is also expected to discuss when and how to select a new interim leadership. On the other side of the aisle, the main opposition Minju Party of Korea's new floor leader, Woo Sang-ho, held a brief meeting with Park Ji-won, his counterpart from the minor opposition People's Party. As the opposition parties will hold a majority in the 20th National Assembly, the two vowed to respect and follow the will of the public, saying they will try to serve the public in collaboration with the ruling party. President Park Geun-hye's approval rating has rebounded after falling for 3 weeks in a row. A public opinion poll by Realmeter on about 2,300 people last week showed almost 36% of respondents were in favor of how the president was running the country. That's up almost 5 percentage points from a week earlier. The president's numbers had been on a downslide in the weeks following the general election, which saw her ruling Saenuri Party suffer a bruising defeat. Realmeter explained that the uptick comes from the news coverage of President Park's recent state visit to Iran and its expected economic effects and North Korea's Workers' Party Congress. Korean researchers have found more cases of revisionism in Japanese history textbooks. The Seoul-based Northeast Asian History Foundation scoured middle school textbooks by 8 publishers. One passage says that after the ancient kingdom of Shilla conquered the Geya Confederacy, Shilla began offering Geya products to Japan as a tribute to keep it out of the kingdom's affairs. The researchers criticized the depiction, saying the idea Japan was able to dominate the northern part of the Korean peninsula through Geya has been discredited in both Korean and Japanese academic circles. The list of errors also includes a reference to the Korean peninsula as the Joseon Peninsula and one passage that says Japan invaded the peninsula to gain control over the kingdoms of Baekje and Shilla. A list of Korean victims killed during the Great Kanto Earthquake of 1923 has been found among official Japanese records. 2 Japanese researchers looking into the matter identified 71 Korean victims among the more than 50,000 earthquake victims recorded by the Japanese government office responsible for providing relief at the time. The list includes people massacred by Japanese soldiers, as was previously confirmed in a document drafted by the Korean government in the 1950s. Experts say the massacre would have killed more Koreans than the earthquake, as most victims lived on the outskirts of Tokyo, while the earthquake struck in the center of the city. The number of Koreans killed is expected to increase when the total number of earthquake victims is determined. A huge chunk of corporate bond contracts held by Korea's top 3 shipbuilders is set to expire by next year. The companies have been failing to turn a profit for years now, instead staying afloat on constant bailouts, prompting worries that they may be out of time. Lee Min-young has the details.
Concerns are mounting that Korea's shipbuilders might go belly up next year. Financial sources say a significant amount of corporate bonds issued by the industry's top 3 companies, Hyundai Heavy Industries, Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering, and Samsung Heavy Industries are due to expire next year. The total amount stands at around $1.9 billion. Daewoo has to pay back roughly $900 million, while each Samsung and Hyundai Heavy need to return $510 million and $580 million. Market watchers say it won't be an easy task as the companies have been suffering eye-watering losses due to low oil prices and slowing global demand. The companies won a mere 5 contracts in the first 4 months of the year, while Daewoo posted an operating loss in the first quarter. With fears growing the shipbuilders could file for bankruptcy, some experts say it's time for the state to bail them out.
The Bank of Korea could issue more currency and the government could inject money from its budget. A separate fund could also be set up so that the losses caused by corporate restructuring could be shared, instead of watching one company collapse.
However, critics argue that by printing more money to help the ailing shipbuilders, the central bank would negatively impact the livelihoods of ordinary people to save companies that have been dragging on Korea's corporate landscape for years. Lee Min-young, Arirang News.
Korean cosmetics makers are expected to tap deeper into the Iranian market after the two countries agreed to waive import inspections. According to Korea's Ministry of Food and Drug Safety, local manufacturers which have met the good manufacturing practice requirements will be free from inspections in Iran. The ministry expects the measure to boost exports of Korean cosmetics to the Middle Eastern nation. The two countries also agreed to set up a promotions hall in Iran within this year, which will display and sell Korean cosmetics. Now, Koreans' investment in foreign securities reached an 8-year high in March on the back of the government's policy to boost foreign investment. According to the Bank of Korea and industry sources, Koreans bought $5.66 billion worth of foreign stocks in March, the amount, which more than doubled from $2.75 billion a year ago, is the highest since November 2007. The government has been facilitating foreign investment by exempting tax on returns from foreign equity funds since the end of February. Korea's financial services industry has shed at least 1,800 jobs over the last 12 months. The Financial Supervisory Service revealed on Monday that the number of workers in the sector has fallen to about 373,600, and that's down from the 375,400 at this time last year. However, the number of actual job losses is estimated to be even higher than that, as the total number of workers also reflects those who were newly employed. By sector, banks slashed around 2,000 jobs. Life insurance and property insurance companies cut 600 to 700 employees each. Authorities attribute the job cuts to worsening profits caused by the prolonged period of low interest rates. Now, in the US, and with Donald Trump affirming his status as the presumptive Republican Party nominee, the traditional red and blue electoral map seems to be going through a radical makeover. In the state of Georgia, for instance, which has traditionally been a dominant Republican state, Trump is now running neck and neck with Hillary Clinton in public opinion polls. Kim Jong-soo has more.
Donald Trump's meteoric rise in the U.S. presidential campaign is apparently causing significant ripples in the country's electoral map. A new landmark Rosetta Stone poll released over the weekend has Trump and Democratic frontrunner Hillary Clinton in a statistical tie in Georgia, a state that Republican candidates have won in the past 5 presidential elections. In the survey, Trump only has a slight edge over Clinton, leading 42.3% to 41.4%. while 15.6% are undecided. The poll is backed up by the latest ratings from the Cook Political Report, an independent online newsletter that analyzes elections. It recently made adjustments to its classification of 13 states, with most of them now supporting Democrats. The list of newly classified states includes Arizona, Indiana, Missouri, and North Carolina, all traditionally Republican states that are now significantly less so. The report also says that, quote, Donald Trump's historic unpopularity with wide swaths of the electorate, which includes women, millennials, independents, and Latinos, make him the initial November underdog. Many view the results as a phenomenon that reflects the breakdown of the Republican Party in the wake of Trump's rise as the party's presumptive nominee. While some GOP elites, such as Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, have agreed to support Trump, House Speaker Paul Ryan, on the other hand, has said last week he is not yet ready to endorse him. With the race between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders on the Democratic side still to be decided, it remains to be seen whether other states will replicate the leftward shift and to what degree. Kim Jung-soo, Arirang News.
Well, those were the stories we've been following on this Monday afternoon here in Seoul. For more of the latest, don't forget to check out the website, arirang.com/news. We also have a smartphone application with all the latest news and programs on it. All you have to do is search for Arirang TV in your app store. Have a great start to the week. Goodbye.